Hello. This is going to be another off-the-cuff discussion regarding the techniques of overtones of bel canto. I recently put myself into AI and I came up as a specialist on it in Buffalo. And nobody of any major importance. My last video made an impact on another singer in determining her voice type, so I'm going to discuss a technique which I think is Berton Coffin, but I never met the man. I was shown by a person who was at the conference, applied her own methods. Like I said in the last video, I could respect her, but I disagree with her. But she showed me this technique, and there's only one place as far as I'm concerned it could have come from, which is Berton Coffin, because I've never seen anything like it. I do remember looking around the early 2000s and seeing Ingo Titze, the head of the School of Vocology, using, I think, the same technique. It's the straw technique, and what it's going to do is it's going to tell you what note number 23 is, which will determine what your voice type is. So let me demonstrate it first, then I'll make some discussion on it. Okay? You put the straw in your mouth, you're going to go like this. Ooh. Now, let's start there. I'm going to go for scale. D. Bass, okay? If I were a baritone or a low baritone, it'd be the E. If I was a lyric baritone, it'd be the F where the crack occurred. I've used that in men before. F sharp for barotenor or dramatic tenor, and G for tenor. There are people who don't fit the rules. I'll discuss in a minute. Now, Kristen here has been with me for a rather long time. How long have you been with me, Kristen?
12 years.
She's been doing Berton Coffin for 12 years, and her prasagios have basically disappeared. As a matter of fact, those little spots where singers flip around or crack or something like that, not this one. Okay? This is the interesting thing, and it was mentioned by the young woman who contacted me, who actually contacted me 2 years before my book, and one of the people who encouraged me to get it out. And again, it's just a guide on how to use Berton Coffin's book. She did the straw trick, which I demonstrated in my previous video, where I was talking about how E and U are transition vowels, and she cracked over, well, she flipped over, she didn't crack on an A flat, which meant she was coloratura, but when I first tested her, she came out 2 keys lower at spin toe. That's another thing. So Kristen's gonna put this thing in her mouth. Okay, let's make this a little softer. You're a girl. Not that you're not. This is low for your range. Okay, go for it. Right there, I heard a harmonic shift. Barely. Did you feel anything?
It switched over.
It switched over on a G. Mm-hmm. It's the same G as the lyric tenor. If you take a look at our facial structures, there's not that much difference, me being the lowest of the voice and her one of the highest. There's not that much difference. The vocal tract of a male and female are almost the same, within a 10 to 20% difference, but the vocal cords are way different. The vocal cords are way bigger in a man, usually double the size, okay? So this is a way of measure the vocal tract. So do that again, Kristen. C sharp, I was thinking D. My turn. Again. D, basso. All right. Why do I use the speaking pitch? And it depends on what phrase you use for the speaking pitch. There's been some controversy as some of my students have gone about and saying, those in college going, Gary, why do they say you're so much different? I said, well, it depends on the phrase. The one woman had the keys about a sixth higher, close to, but she uses the phrase, hi, how are you? And if you listen to the way I do it, it takes you to the highest comfortable pitch. When I have people call, count to 10, they go down to the lowest comfortable pitch at that time, and they have no emotional inflection. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And then just imitate the pitch of their voice, and then I start playing notes, okay? That's the way I've approached it. But with regards to this method, what I don't know about it is what happens if there's inflammation on the voice. the acid reflux or abuse. And as I wrote in my book, there's a right way to say an I, and most people don't do it, and that's the major source of interiorization and damage. How they say that vowel. So it doesn't surprise me when this one woman contacted me and her voice had gone higher as the inflammation reduced. When things get inflamed, the tissue gets bigger, which would mean lower. I'm not sure, because I don't use this method too much, whether it will truly tell me what the voice type is if there's inflammation. Probably in my book I have a chapter called From Broken to Restored, and it's the same thing basically, so I'm not surprised most people have not read it. My story is the last case study, of which of the 15, and I've had more than that, but when I first came to my teacher, Beverly, she did this with me, and it bounced around for about 3 months. My first shifting point was F sharp, then went down to E flat, then went up to G, and then went down to E, and where else it landed, but it landed on a D. Why? Was it irritation? Was it me being a low voice and trying not to sound like this all the time? Trying to sound more like a normal person? Was it some form of acid reflux? Was it damage to my sinuses, which I had ended up being, my sinuses got cauterized 5 times. I don't know. I do not know whether this method will tell us what a singer is if the tissue is inflamed. I don't know. Okay? That's being truthful. In the case of Kristen, the speaking pitch got her there, but this just verifies what I already knew. I also had one other young woman, which I didn't mention in my book, and she came to me at a very young age. I checked the speaking pitch. I did not use this. Teenager. I want to crack. And she started off an A, and over the months, it raised all the way to coloratura. That's not normal. I've never seen anything like that. Because usually when there's irritation, it'll go up by half step, maybe 2, but not 5. So I said to her father, because that's not a good sign, I said, would you please take her to the ear, nose, and throat for an examination of her vocal cords? This is what her father told me. She had such bad acid reflux, which would cause incredible inflammation, that she had burns on her vocal cords. So, this method, I'm not sure is Berton Coffin. I'm pretty sure it's Berton Coffin. This is, I believe, another way, perhaps more accurate, to determine whether the voice type is faster. Maybe. I don't know. You can't base an entire case study in only like I did with my 15, but you can get a pretty good idea with it. Okay, I've been teaching for 40 years. And when I asked this young woman what she thinks I should do next, she said, you should do this because it'll help people the most. My next discussion may be multi-timbral singing, harmonics versus non-harmonics, or something of that nature. But this, I believe, will be more beneficial to those of us who are teaching, and perhaps the singer themselves. In Berton Coffin's nomenclature for singers, there are not 3, there definitely are not 2. There's 5 for the girls, and 6 for the men. That's 11. And there are, to be not so trying to be kind, freaks. Dr. Coffin, in the only videotape, audio tape I ever heard of him, talked about a man whose voice was 2 notes lower than mine, which would make him along the lines of a super bass. The passaggio was not a D, it was a C. And I firmly believe one of the first people I ever taught in 1985, when I did not know what I was doing, was a countertenor who had a passaggio not of G like a lyric, he had a passaggio of A to B flat. It was that high. We would call him a countertenor. Mr. Sage, what do you do in that case? Put the chromatic alternative higher. He said to me, he got kind of, he said, Gary, I can hit that B flat all day long. Was it giving me trouble? Well, your passaggio is B flat, it wouldn't give you trouble. Beyond that, it might. Of course, it also means his vocal tract would probably go up to an F, soprano F easily. Possibly. So, in conclusion, is this a Berton Coffin technique? I'm pretty sure it is, but I don't know. And one more thing I forgot to mention was, there's been some controversy I've been seeing through the internet, where another writing for speech pitch was about a half step off from mine. Okay. But what I'm asking is whether they're testing at A440 or at A444 or A456. That matters. That also means the chromatic vowel chart was written at the pitch of A444 in Austria and A456 won't work anymore unless you adjust it and you know how to. Anybody who's curious about that can contact me in the comments or at my email sagebellcanto@aol.com or sagebellcanto@gmail.com. Thank you for listening. Please enjoy the information. I really hope it helps. Thank you, Kristen.